Hello, I'm Dr. Gloria Horsley.
And I'm her daughter, Dr. Heidi Horsley.
Heidi and I want to welcome you to Open to Hope Conversations, the podcast.
We believe that the greatest gift you can give yourself after a loss is hope, using this moment to connect with others who have not only survived but thrived.
So let's get started.
We're going to be talking a lot today about actively moving forward. And we've had the founder on our show, Dr. David Feigenbaum, and he is a good friend of ours. And we are going to talk now about their director of programming, Kiri Meyer. And Kiri is a licensed child and family therapist in Wisconsin. And she is the director of programming, as I said, for Actively Moving Forward. And it's a healgrief.org program. She is also the founder of Starbright Grief Guidance, and has made her life's work to educate and advocate in the fields of grief and trauma. And she's no stranger to lost mom because she had a friend die in high school and has lost her grandparents as well. So welcome to the show, Kiri.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
The problem with grief and loss to start with in colleges, right?
That's right. I mean, I think, the statistics show in research that it's almost 1 in 4 college students are within their first year of bereavement. When we get to their second year of bereavement, it's almost up to 50% of college students experiencing bereavement. So this is a huge kind of unspoken population. So that is why we love to be able to be here to do the work we do.
And talk about the work you're doing, because when Heidi's brother was killed, she and her sister, Rebecca, were in college. And there was no support groups, were there, Heidi?
No, there were no support groups when Scott died. I was 20 and my sister was 19. We were both 3,000 miles away at the University of Utah, and we grew up in New York. And none of our friends had ever had a brother die. And I felt so isolated and so alone. And I would have loved an AMF group to go to so that I could be with other people that had gone through the same thing.
And that's the really hard part, is that we know so many people with similar experiences that just say, I just really felt isolated. I wanted somebody to be able to connect with. And as wonderful as on-campus supports are, peer supports just have a different feel to them. And that's why we really focus on that peer support, is because there's a different kind of relationship that you can count on from your peers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. Peers have got the same kind of problems. I mean, particularly for people of college age, there are all sorts of, what are you going to do about your test? What are you going to do about people who want you to be fun like you were and go to parties? All sorts of things.
Right. And developmentally too, as we think about our brain development and our personality development, we really tend to go towards our peers during this time in life. Those are the most important people in our world. And that's natural development, but it can be so hard when we feel like nobody understands it, nobody gets it, nobody's been through it. That's horribly isolating for that level of development.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it was interesting because as a 20-year-old in college, I felt like I wanted to take a break from it sometimes, but I felt like people might be judging me if I did. So I felt like I was damned if I do, I damned if I don't, because like my mom said, I was in a sorority, and I was like, they would always say, if you find Heidi, you'll find the party. And when Scott died, I wasn't that person. And they were like, after about 2 weeks, they were like, okay, Heidi, where's the fun Heidi? We don't like the new Heidi. And I was like, I'm not ready to be the fun Heidi. It's only been a couple of weeks. So it was really, really hard for people to understand what I've been through.
Right. And truthfully, that's one of the reasons that we have the wonderful name that we do, is because unfortunately we hear a lot of people say, aren't you over that yet? Or it's been, however long. We don't believe you actually move on or, get over your grief, but we do believe that you can actively move forward in your grief journey. But grief stays with you. It grows and changes with you, which is the beautiful part of it, but you never just get over it. And so we try to kind of fight that misconception too, is like, oh, well, it's been a year, you should be over it. Or it's been a couple months, you should be over it. And that's really hard as we're trying to find out who we are as young adults as well, is to think like, oh, this can't be part of who I am anymore because it's been so long.
So how many actively moving forward groups do you have in the country?
Yeah, so great question. This is always a tricky question for me, just because things are always growing and changing and moving around. We have about 38 right now at the end of the semester, but truthfully, it really depends on the week, because we have people starting up different chapters, giving us inquiries, things like that, and we're actually starting up community chapters now. So we'll have an influx of things coming in from there as well, because we know not all young adults go to college. So we want to give young adults who are out in the working world, we want to give them the same outlet that college students can have with AMF. We ask that you contact us through the Heal Grief website. The reason we don't have a list sitting out is because one of the things we fear is that, if you are really having a hard grief day and you see that there's not already something listed, you may just go, oh well. And we never want that to happen. We always want you to be able to feel supported. So we here at National will answer every inquiry that comes in, and we will help you find the right kind of support for you. So yes, we are always looking for people to build chapters or join chapters around the US. So we are happy to give people that information or find whatever's closest to them. And it is a commitment, only because it's really kind of, we have two tiers to our chapters. There's the peer-led grief support group, and then there is kind of a service component to it. So giving back in honor of the people who have died. But we do know people say, yeah, it was work getting it set up, but man, the return on it when I actually had a community of support to go to was totally worth it.
What do you see as the major problems for people who are in these age groups?
Yeah, there are quite a few, unfortunately. So one of them that I think is really important right now is how our society is allowing us or enabling us to become busy all the time. And this, I am finding, is really hard to start implementing self-care when we're told that we have to go to school or work or both. We have to have internships. We have to take care of ourselves and maybe other people. There are so many things that we pile on top that self-care is usually last on the list. And that our grief journey is when we need it most. We need that self-compassion. We need that self-care. And what I'm hearing from young adults is, I don't have time. And I'm also hearing, I don't have time for a support group. And then so we try to say, hey, let's work this in. Let's figure out how to make it work for your life. So you don't have to try to stop everything around you, but we can incorporate this support, because we as a community need to be able to support each other. Mm-hmm. But just the kind of the over glorification of busy is hitting millennials and Gen Zers so hard. It's really hard.
And how about social media in connection with all this?
I think that can be a double-edged sword, truthfully. I think there are ways that we can connect with each other with social media that we may not have been able to before. So I know some people are putting up, memorials on Facebook and things like that, and they're able to hear from people and maybe connect through that. We're thinking of your family, things like that, where people may have been uncomfortable doing that in a face-to-face situation. They now have an outlet to do that through. That's what we love about Heal Grief, the virtual candle, the memorials, is that gives another opportunity for people to show support. But I do think it is also a way to avoid the face-to-face conversations, which is not helpful for the individuals who are grieving, because that's something that we need. Social media is not enough. Virtual stuff is not enough. We need the face-to-face. That's just as humans.
Do you meet on campus with this college students, or are you meeting off campus?
So all the campus chapters, they do meet on campus usually, but the interesting thing about our chapters is we find our young adults are saying we don't want to sit in a room and just stare at each other and talk. We want to do things, because one of the things they say is it's hard to get out and do things, especially by myself. So having this community built in is a great way to, some of them go on hikes, some of them will just go out to dinner, some will go to a yoga class all together, some will go to an ice cream shop and then take a walk, or somebody might bring their dog and have a little unofficial pet therapy session. So they usually go out and do something. They are literally actively moving forward together by creating a community where it's not just let's sit and talk about grief. Grief just comes up naturally because we know this is a safe place to talk about it, but we're also rock climbing or whatever it may be. So totally depends. Sometimes we'll have a movie night where they're just ordering pizza and, project it up on a screen and just watch a movie together. So it totally depends. We try to give them autonomy because we know that every place will have its own culture. We want them to do what's best for them. So that's kind of a yes and a no.
How often do they meet? Once a month?
So there are some chapters who want to meet every week. There are some chapters who will meet once a month. They really keep in touch with each other through like a GroupMe app or different things where they're able to have constant communication should they want and or need it, that peer support, but they'll really figure out what works best in their schedules.
I like this a lot. And I know that you earlier said that you had a friend that died in high school.
I did, yes.
And did you get support after her death or no?
So I had a wonderful support system with my friends and my family. And I actually was able to get a bench, named in her honor and get a plaque and everything. And that is what, really led me to like the service aspect of AMF is there are so many different ways that we can grieve and we can express ourselves. And for me, that was really important. And, I think played into all of this. And so, yeah, I was luckily very well supported in my grief.
I was going to ask you about the service component of AMF. So do you give people ideas of how they can serve, or do you give them jobs? I mean, what does that look like?
So we definitely give them ideas, but what we say to them is figure out within your group what people want to do to honor their people who've died. We've had people do book drives, food drives. We've had somebody did a yoga-thon to honor her mom. We've had so many different things, but they are all really connected to the person who has died. And that's when we know it means the most to them. So instead of just saying, you need to do X, Y, Z, we know that they're going to put their heart and soul into it if it really has an impact on themselves and the person who's died.
And how long after the death do people usually get involved with AMF?
Yeah, we do not judge anyone's grief. So we've had people who, as you said, 10 years ago, we've had people who say it's been less than a year. We say, if you are grieving, if you're a young adult and you're grieving, you're welcome. There have been quite a few different ways that people have found us, whether it has been from a campus professional who is a grief advocate and an AMF advocate. Definitely Google. We get a lot of people say, I Googled college student grief, and this is the only thing that popped up. And we're like, well, we're glad we're here. And then people just hearing from friends or family members or other professionals out in the world.
Well, I love what you're doing, and I want to thank you for being on the show. And I would like you to give your contact information, because I know there are people who are going to be listening to this that know somebody that would like to see a group start or find a group or know somebody who's had a loss.
The first option that you have is to go to healgrief.org. There is a informational, like an inquiry section that you can always put an inquiry in. Those come directly to me, so I'm happy to answer those. Or if you'd like to, again, get me in a different way directly, my email is Kiri, it's KIRI -AMF @healgrief.org. And I'm always happy to answer whatever questions people may have.
Oh, thank you, Kiri. And thanks so much for being on the show and for all the great work you're doing. And give David a hello from us.
Wonderful. And thank you both for helping us to talk about actively moving forward and heal grief.
Yes. Thanks so much, Kiri, for all the work that you're doing and for being there for students and young adults in the community and in college. I wish you had been there when my brother died.
I wish we would have too.
I'm Dr. Heidi Horsley. You have been listening to Open to Hope, the podcast. You can follow Open to Hope on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. To learn more, visit us at opentohope.com and go to Apple Podcasts to subscribe.
I'm Dr. Gloria Horsley. Join us again next week for another Open to Hope conversation, where we invite you to lean on our hope until you find your own.